Corner. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another episode of Cutter's Corner. For the inevitable review of Glarry! Now, inevitably, if you've been watching guitar channels long enough, you've probably seen about 1,000 reviews for Glarry guitars floating around YouTube and the internet. So, is this Glarry every bit as good or as bad? Mostly the latter, as people have said. No way to find out until we open it up and take a look. With that in mind, to open it up, check out the guts, see how it's made, and maybe get some sawdust in the face. I'll see you at the table.
Finish. Wood design. Bridge to Rollo system. Sound hole. Costume design, sorry. Expose yourself. Yeah. Unhappy customers. Old dudes that win Glarrys as prizes. They have a bass guitar version of that awful looking whatever. Fulfill your musical dreams. Glarry! So let's check this out. The Glarry GTL Telecaster is a pretty standard Telecaster copy. It looks pretty good from afar. That may belie some technical issues under the hood, but we'll check that out later. You know, overall, it's got the pretty standard Telecaster specs. 2-piece maple neck, basswood body, 22 standard frets, etc. These pickups, on the other hand, were some of the worst I played in recent memory. They were non-wax potted and extremely microphonic and really just sounded like shit. I mean, I tried to do an initial sound test demo for you guys. I really did, but with these pickups, it was impossible. But beyond that, it's got a large baseball bat maple neck, if you like that kind of thing. And, you know, standard Tele styling. Deep dive.
Well, the Glarry, of course, you know, a Glarry guitar.
So let's check out the guts here. It's pretty standard stuff under the control plate, standard dime size 500K pots, cheap import switch, and so on. So nothing unusual here. And under the bridge, this is a very cheap looking ceramic pickup. Even more concerning is the fact that the screws mounting the pickup were too long, and as opposed to cutting the screws or finding new screws, they literally just crudely drilled down into the body with some kind of machine here, and they left tons of sawdust. And this is pretty ugly. So, and here's a shot of the cavity. You can see the multiply body here. So they've got 3 pieces of basswood just kind of stacked on each other in a pancake fashion. Now, I've been told before, under the pickguard on these guitars, the neck pickup is cut for humbucker, but in this case, a little surprise, glorious P90. Yeah, so it's cut for a P90 slot, which is definitely a nice and welcome surprise, and it's also full of sawdust. And again, for the heck of it, here's the neck cavity with the 3-ply basswood body. Now let's talk about some major screw-ups, like this control plate screw, drilled right into thin air.
Note to self, Glarry cannot be trusted with drilling holes.
And then there's the neck, and whoa, look at this. I mean, I don't know what happened to this, but yeah, major like car accident or some kind of impact, or somebody used this as a weapon to bludgeon some other factory worker that they didn't like. I don't know what happened, but yeah, this is just bad. But on a happier note, I happen to have this chrome-covered Alnico P90 in my possession, and so I will use this on the neck, and this fits. And that is one deep neck pocket, folks. What about the bridge pickup, you're asking? Well, good question. To that end, I've got these Fender Tex-Mex Tele pickups I've had lying around for a while, and we're going to drop these in the bridge. They're all nickel, they're quite hot.
Don't forget they're nicely priced.
I've used them in a bunch of builds before, and this is going to be hugely better than the existing bridge pickup, which kind of just sounds like... So there are a couple simple ways to fill up an extensively large P90 cavity, and one of them is to trace your pickup like this around a piece of foam core board you can kind of get from any dollar store. And you can just drop that right in the hole. Ideally, you put a little bit of glue in there so it won't slide around as you put your springs and then screws in, but you know, that'll help fill up a hole if you've got a really deep cavity. Now once your pickup is supported and placed by a piece of foam or a foam board or whatever you put in there, it's time to drill for the screw holes. So just take a little drill bit like this of the appropriate size, apply consistent downward pressure, and just twist that a little bit in each hole. And it's just going to prime the holes you're eventually going to drill. Of course, a couple different ways to do this, but this is the way I do it. And then we drill those holes nice and easy. Just use a fine drill bit here, high-speed drill bit. Now to screw this P90 in place. Place the springs over the screws on the bottom of the pickup. Don't worry about them falling off. The pickup is a big magnet. It's going to hold them in place. Then you want to gently turn this over, line those screws up perfectly with the holes. Don't get frustrated. It may take a few tries. Then apply straight, consistent downward pressure on each screw, going one to the other with your screwdriver, and just set that shiny P90 in place. Then off camera, I cut the pick guard to fit the P90. That was kind of a process considering this pick guard was so non-standard, just such a weird size. Now my Tex-Mex is fastened into the bridge, and I'm gonna put this in place and begin screwing it in. No, standard size pickups do not fit in this little, so I'm gonna have to do some more cutting. A brand new Glarry. Well, kind of. Alright guys, so here's the final product, and this is looking not too shabby for a Glarry. You know, the changes have been substantial, but in this case I would say pretty much necessary to, you know, get any kind of decent sound out of it. Now the one thing I did, you'll note, change in addition is switched out the bridge to this Wilkinson brass saddle bridge. A lot better sustain. I like this a lot more, a lot better feel, etc. I mean, there's just no comparison to the other kind of cheap, crappy pop metal chrome bridge. And I switched out that plate for another plate. This one's a little bit better. It's got full-size 500K pots and a little bit nicer switch. Yeah, this is a more elongated plate, and it allowed me to only drill one hole as opposed to two. And, you know, if I had used the other plate and shifted it down, there would have been a noticeable gap between the pick guard and the plate. So that was definitely not going to work. Sounds. Oh, yeah. Back with the final wrap-up and my thoughts on this Glarry Telecaster. When we began, before these mods here, it was not without its many issues. You know, it was poorly cut and sloppily finished. Routes were terrible. Holes were drilled seemingly into thin air, which was extremely frustrating when trying to put a
proper control plate back in place. And the damage at the base of the neck, I mean, that was almost unbelievable. To me, that really shows a company that's really trying to squeeze any kind of return on investment on very kind of tight margins, cutting corners wherever they possibly can, and so that is kind of what happens with that. You know, on the other hand, it is an incredibly cheap guitar, so you know, some of these things, I mean, I guess you could give it a pass. It is set-upable. You could probably take this to a luthier. A simple trip to the luthier would probably solve a lot of the, you know, kind of intonation, action, and some other, maybe if you have any dead fret issues. And, you know, as a platform for mods, it's really not a bad guitar to pick up to begin your kind of mod journey if that's where you're at, right? You know, for this, you know, obviously the black finish is okay. I don't mind that chunky neck so much. And, you know, the big surprise for me, of course, of, you know, opening up a pick guard and seeing a P90 route there really made my year. So anyways, that's the Glarry Telecaster, folks. We started out with not a great guitar here, and we made ourselves an absolute monster. Now, not really, but... And overall, I mean, if you're looking for something, again, to get started on, that's really inexpensive, you want to buy a couple mid-priced parts, throw them in here, well, this is really not a bad guitar to start with. So anyways, guys, I want to thank you for watching the channel. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, etc., 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 and keep watching the channel for a whole lot more.
And just before we go, I want to give a shout out to my man GARBAGEFACE, who has released his latest album. It is yet another beaut, this time on this beautiful spackled vinyl, with a perfect mix of harsh beats, distorted synths, and lurching rhythms, as one reviewer put it. It's brilliant. Check out his link in the video description.